This is not a routine maritime incident, and it is not a misunderstanding at sea. The seizure of an American-linked boat by Iran marks a moment that could reshape the balance of power in one of the most sensitive regions on Earth. What happened in these waters sends a calculated signal not only to Washington, but to every nation that depends on secure global trade routes, energy flows, and strategic stability. The question now is not whether this incident matters, but how far its consequences could reach. According to official statements and regional reports, Iranian forces intersected and seized an American-linked vessel operating in strategically critical waters. While details remain limited and some elements are still contested, the action itself is unmistakable. Iranian authorities have framed the seizure within their own legal and security narrative, while U.S. officials have condemned the move and called it a provocation. This incident adds another layer of tension to an already strained relationship shaped by sanctions, military posturing, and unresolved diplomatic disputes. Strategically, the location of the seizure is as important as the act itself. The waters where the interception occurred sit near key maritime corridors that handle a significant share of global energy shipments and commercial traffic. Control or even temporary disruption of these routes carries global implications. Analysts say Iran has repeatedly demonstrated that it views maritime leverage as one of its most effective tools against Western pressure, especially when economic sanctions limit its conventional options. For Tehran, this seizure serves multiple strategic purposes. It projects strength domestically, reinforcing the image of resistance against U.S. influence. It also sends a clear external message that Iran retains the capability and willingness to challenge American interests directly, but in a calibrated way that stops short of open warfare. By targeting a vessel rather than a military base, Iran applies pressure while maintaining plausible deniability and strategic ambiguity. For the United States, the incident presents a difficult dilemma. Responding too aggressively risks escalation in a region already crowded with military assets and unresolved conflicts. Responding too cautiously could be interpreted as weakness, potentially inviting further challenges not only from Iran, but from other actors watching closely. U.S. officials now face the task of reassuring allies, protecting commercial shipping, and maintaining deterrence without triggering a wider confrontation. The seizure also has implications for U.S. allies and partners, particularly those in the Gulf and across Europe and Asia, who depend on stable maritime trade. Any perception that shipping lanes are becoming less secure can drive up insurance costs, disrupt supply chains, and increase energy prices. Analysts warn that even isolated incidents, if repeated, can create a climate of uncertainty that ripples through the global economy. Historically, similar confrontations between Iran and the United States have followed a familiar pattern. Maritime seizures are often followed by diplomatic standoffs, military signaling, and sometimes reciprocal actions. In past cases, vessels have been held for days or weeks before being released as part of quiet negotiations or broader political messaging. Each episode, however, increases the risk of miscalculation, especially when multiple naval forces operate in close proximity. The risk of escalation in this case cannot be ignored. A single incident at sea can quickly spiral if warning shots, aggressive maneuvers, or misinterpreted communications occur. Analysts point out that the density of military assets in the region raises the stakes, as any clash could draw in regional partners or trigger responses beyond the immediate actors involved. This is why global attention is now fixed on how both Tehran and Washington choose their next steps. Beyond the immediate confrontation, this seizure fits into a larger strategic picture. Iran has increasingly relied on asymmetric tactics to offset U.S. military superiority, using proxies, cyber operations, and maritime actions to assert influence. The United States, meanwhile, continues to balance its commitments in the Middle East with competing priorities in Europe and the Indo-Pacific. Each incident forces a reassessment of how resources, attention, and deterrence are allocated. There is also a diplomatic dimension to consider. Ongoing tensions over Iran's nuclear program, sanctions relief, and regional security form the backdrop to this event. Some analysts suggest the seizure could be intended to strengthen Iran's negotiating position, reminding the West that pressure carries costs. Others warn it could harden positions on both sides, making diplomatic breakthroughs even more difficult. Looking ahead, several scenarios are possible. The situation could de-escalate through quiet diplomacy, with the vessel released and tensions temporarily reduced. Alternatively, the incident could prompt increased U.S. and allied naval patrols, further militarizing the region. In a worst-case scenario, a cycle of actions and reactions could unfold, raising the risk of a broader confrontation that neither side publicly seeks but may struggle to avoid. What is clear is that this seizure changes the immediate strategic environment. It reinforces the vulnerability of maritime routes, tests U.S. deterrence, and underscores Iran's ability to influence global attention through targeted actions. For policymakers, military planners, and markets alike, the message is the same. The balance of power at sea remains fragile, and small incidents can carry outsized consequences. PrimeNews will continue to monitor this developing story, tracking official responses, diplomatic signals, and military movements as the situation evolves. Subscribe to PrimeNews for clear, authoritative geopolitical analysis. And join the conversation by telling us this: does this seizure mark a temporary escalation or the beginning of a more confrontational phase in U.S.-Iran relations?